And welcome to a short video on defining and managing user groups and access control lists to control access to folders and documents within DocuShare Flex. So I've logged in as a system coordinator and I've selected the users and groups option off the menu and the middle tab for groups. So this video is going to deal with groups and access lists. What are the two definitions for these? So groups are quite simple. It is a group of users that need access to a particular feature. So an example of that is a finance team may be under one group of finance people, so you'll have a list of people. Access lists are about providing those groups access to various resources within DocuShare Flex. And we'll see an example of how to do that shortly. To start with, I'm going to create a group. So I'm going to add a local group to the system. So let's give my group a title. So I'm just going to call it Accounts, and this is for the Accounts department. So a title and a summary, and at this point we can add potential group members. So we can go through lists and we can add other groups. So if we had already defined an accounts payable group, we could add that to the accounts group, so everyone in accounts payable would become part of accounts as well. Or we can search for individual users, both in the list, or we can search in the normal way within DocuShare. So I'm going to add Andrews to my accounts group. Click next, and what we need to do is give some permissions to who can manage this group. So as I said with previous permissions on things like users, I would strongly recommend that you keep this quite broad. So perhaps a general access list. So effectively anyone that has permissions to get to the user and groups function can manage this list. Remember, only coordinators can get at users and groups and the administration. So a restricted number of coordinators, i.e. system administrators, can get access to this. If you wish to restrict this to specific people or specific groups of people, you can do that. But that is again where you probably want to consult Xerox Professional Services to get the right configuration for your requirement. So all I need to do once I've selected the permissions on this group is to click OK, and we've got my group up here. So we've got a group of users. If I click into that, I can see the membership. It's only one person at the moment, but I can add extra people to that group as I may wish. So we've got a group. What we're going to be doing is we're going to create a folder for accounts to put documents into, and we want to make sure that only the accounts group of people can access that. So what I need to create is an access control list to allow that restriction to be applied. So I'm going to create an access list. I'm going to call it Accounts ACL, Accounts Access Control List. I can put some descriptions in there if I really want. Let's put the accounts group into this access control list, and it's at this point that we can pick what sort of access they may need. So we can at this point say that this group can only have reader permissions. They can only participate in the workflow and not actually edit anything other than the workflow. They can edit documents. Probably the most global capability is they can manage documents. So a lot of users typically will have managed. That gives them the ability to upload new versions, upload new documents, download, amend metadata, and that sort of thing. There is a little I next to the drop down list, and that will tell you all the capabilities that permission set has. So I can add another group if I wanted to, or I could add individual people if I want to. I strongly recommend that you use groups, because that way you don't have to come into individual access control lists and modify them. All you need to do is add the person to a group or remove them from a group, and it will then apply properly. So I can click add, and I have my access control list. So how do we use groups and access lists to secure content? Well, let me go to Files, and I'm going to create a folder. So add a folder, and I'm going to call it Accounts folder. I can give it any other information I want, but I'm just going to keep it simple as Accounts folder. I can see my Accounts folder there. What I need to do is go and pick the properties of this Accounts folder. And this is where we need to make a change on the permissions. So like everything else in Flex, we've got a number of tabs, and we can see change history, we can see the properties, we can make those amendments if we have the permissions. But I do need to go through and set permissions. So as the owner, I'm the person that created this folder. I will always have access. So if I shouldn't have access going forward, you can change the owner to someone perhaps in the accounts group. But I can show and hide and view the different groups that are associated with this folder at the moment. What I want to do is go in and change the permissions, and I can either, the default is to inherit whatever the permissions was from the folder above, but in this case I want to go and choose my access control list. And if you remember, we created an accounts access control list, and I'm just going to click that over and click save. So what we've done now, what we've done with that is we've restricted access to this folder to the owner, and more importantly, only to people that are in that accounts group. So if you have someone log in from IT, they can see what they have permissions to. They can't access the accounts list. So brief summary, we create groups to group together users with similar sort of requirements, similar sorts of access requirements. We have access control lists which define an access control list which define one or more groups against it and what sort of permissions that we're going to give with that access control list. And then against our folder, we add the access control list to lock down that folder and control who can access that folder. And of course, if we want to use the same ACL against a different folder, probably not right for human resources, but we could add that to human resources if that was appropriate. Hopefully this has been a useful short explanation of user groups and access control lists and how to control access to Flex documents and folders. Thank you.